Well, let's see if I can demystify this a little bit. You're going to be using trial by fire. You probably want to use the electronic version that is linked right here. And as you go through it, you're basically going to be, as I mentioned here, searching keywords. And look at how they resulted in a guilty verdict in part 1 and the execution, and how in parts 2 to 6 they're challenged, and I'm missing an O, I'll get that, and proved Willingham's innocence. And I mentioned it's really a story about arson or not arson, or guilty, innocent. And that's it. And if it's not arson, he didn't kill his kids, and he was wrongfully executed. And David Gran, that is, the author of Trial by Fire, builds a whole story around this. So when you start looking into the faulty fire forensics, you really kind of get into the DNA of this thing. And so let's just say if you looked up the word accelerant, and I'll go over to the trial by fire right now, naturally this thing is right in the way of the point I want to make, which is that you have 23, this thing is just despicable, but anyway, you have 23 references to accelerant. If you just cruise through those alone, you would see how in part 1 the accelerant idea was used to prove that he started the fire, that is, he killed his children, and then as you cruise along to the latter part of the tale, oh, it's moved now, okay, you find, this is nuts, you find that it's used to show that their whole conception of accelerants and arson was entirely mistaken, and he didn't burn the house. So that's just one example here of accelerant. And so the goal for this is to basically give a good response here that show 3 theories that were proven to be bunk. Use your own words. So here we go. We have Fogg examined a piece of glass from one broken window. It contained a spider web-like pattern. Fire investigator called crazed glass. Forensic textbooks had long described the effect as a key indicator that a fire burned fast and hot, meaning that it had been fueled by a liquid accelerant, causing the glass to fracture. So there's Vasquez making a conclusion that actually had been supported by textbooks. Very simple. And the idea that the house was started by accelerant, as proven by the crazed glass in the children's bedroom windows, proved Willingham had poured flammable liquid on the floor to kill his 3 children. And then to add a little bit of strength to Vasquez's conclusion, because he is an authority, 1,200 fires and all, fire doesn't destroy evidence, it creates it. And so this is a sort of hard and fast black and white world where Willingham, I don't know where that came from, I will get rid of it, where Willingham basically used liquid accelerant. And obviously the crazed glass is proof of that. But then check this out here, and then you go into part 2, and we have basically the Oakland Hills fire of 1991. I actually remember that, but many of you weren't around back then. Anyway, so you can say that the idea that an accelerant caused crazed glass was disproved by when fire investigators inspected 50 houses in the Oakland Hills in Oakland, California, which had been ravaged by brush fires. These houses had crazed glass, quote, even though a liquid accelerant had not been used. All right? And so after doing many tests, they realized that the glass had fractured, or the fracturing had been induced by rapid cooling rather than rapid heating. And so what happens here is that this old theory is thrown out by the evidence of the Oakland Hills fire. Actually, a year before Willingham was sentenced to death, So the information was out there, but somehow in Corsicana, Texas, they weren't aware of this. Certainly Vasquez wasn't. And to conclude, Hearst wrote that Vasquez and Fogg's notion of crazed glass was no more than an old wives' tale. That is, this hard evidence that brought Willingham to his death was utterly groundless. So you notice I kind of have the parts of the quotes I'm going to use. I'm not going to plop the whole thing, and I talk around some of them. And this is not elegant. It's off the top of my head. It would take me 45 minutes to turn this into a solid paragraph. But if I wanted to continue with this, I could also talk about, this is my conclusion, the airtight, quote-unquote, arson investigation that led Willingham's execution was based on a nonsense theory. Any crazed glass was a result of firefighters spraying water on the fire and not caused by Willingham pouring an accelerant on the floor. Now, if I want to explore this further, I can say that not only was the theory wrong, but the evidence was literally non-existent, because the lab test could not detect evidence of an accelerant where Vasquez claimed all the pour pattern configurations were. It turned up nothing. Jackson, the prosecutor who convinced the jury to execute Willingham, told me, that is author David Gran, that he never understood why they weren't able to recover positive tests in those parts. Of course, this is my voice, the reason he did not understand there were no positive tests was because he was so sure Willingham was guilty, he did not consider how Willingham could be innocent. That is, how he did not start the fire by pouring flammable liquid all over the house before setting it on fire. So they figured the lab was mistaken. They were so certain that Willingham had used accelerant, yet the theory was bogus, and there was no lab evidence to back it up. No sign of accelerant where Vasquez said the pour patterns were. So this is really kind of cool. And not only that, his lawyer, Martin, was so convinced of Willingham's guilt that he said all of the evidence showed he was 100% guilty. He poured accelerant all over the house, put lighter fluid under the kid's bed. It was, he said, a classic arson case. There were puddle patterns all over the place. No disputing those. So you get it now. Confirmation bias also on the part of the person, his lawyer, who was supposed to defend him. This is how powerful it is. You've got bogus theories and confirmation bias woven together to make a man guilty of arson where there's no evidence of arson, and have the prosecutor and the defense not even questioning the fact that there was no evidence of accelerant in the house. This is powerful. Now, if you take a section like that and really bang it out, you don't have to do 11 of them. Just find perhaps one more area, and that's it for the Willingham portion in faulty fire forensics. Just a note for you that you can do one or two things really robustly and use your critical reading and writing skills to bring it to life, or them to life, or you can do more things in a shallow way. I'd say stick with a couple that you can really dig into, because that way you can show your critical thinking skills. And for now, just get three and show three arson indicators and show how they led to his guilty verdict and eventual execution, and then how in parts 2 through 6 they're shown to be absolutely groundless and point actually to the fact that Willingham was most likely innocent. I hope this helps you figure out how to collect information and think your way through it.